So the feather razor, or the feather plie simply means to fold. It's French. It's like goes back to ballet. So it's a folding razor. So you're going to open it up. So the tang, I'm a right-handed haircutter, so I'm going to speak to you as a righty. So the tang is going to be sitting to my left, and you'll see that it says feather plie, and that feather plie is only written on one side, so that's generally facing me. I'm going to take my fingers, like a peace symbol. I'm going to insert the fingers within the blade and pushing the handle as far back within the knuckles as possible. Never using it up here because it's very unstable and out of balance, or even here, I just don't have control of the razor. This blade is sharper than any scissor that you'll ever pick up. It's surgical steel, it's micro thin. That's why like when you cut yourself, it feels like the worst paper cut you'll ever get, you know what I mean? So now that it's nicely tight, and this is one of the, honestly, when you're first using it, it's a bit uncomfortable to feel that squeezing and that pressure back here. You just eventually get used to it. Then I'm gonna take my thumb, and I'm gonna take my thumb below the blade. I'm gonna rotate the scissor through the hand, so now it becomes a natural extension. So you can see where that tang is sitting within the palm, and now it's almost creating like a 45-degree angle across the index finger. So once I extend my arm out, it becomes a natural extension of the arm, all right? I've got good control over the razor. It's not going anywhere. So I'm grabbing it really tautly between the index and the middle finger. The basic motion of the razor is controlled by my thumb and my index finger. The thumb pushes it up, the index finger brings it down. The up and down motion is what we call our stroke. The stroke is what's gonna cut the hair, right? It's gonna be the stroke of the razor. If I'm utilizing, there's three different elements of the blade. We've got our tip, which is really the first like inch. We've got the middle, which is about the 2 fingers, and then we've got the heel of the razor, which is the back edge. If I'm generally cutting a line and I'm moving to the right, I'm utilizing the tip of the razor. Reason being, look where the heel is if the client's head is here. It's away from the individual. If I utilize the heel of a razor, cutting against somebody's head, it's going to put the tip right against their neck. It's just basic safety. As I'm cutting to the left, I'm going to be utilizing the heel of the razor. Same reason, the tip's far away from the individual, right? So tip to the right, heel to the left. If you're a lefty, it's just opposite. Tip to the left, heel to the right. So tip to the right, right-handed, heel to the left. You guys all righties?
Yes.
Cool. So using the tip and the heel of the razor is when we're going to begin to use the stroke, and that's going to create a bit of a line, but depending on how open my stroke is, it can create something more distinct or something a bit more soft. So if this is the shaft of hair, the more closed stroke I work, it's going to create a line that's going to be consistent but with some slight diffusion through it. If I begin to open that stroke, it's going to create a line, but it's also going to begin to make it a bit more broken. The more open the stroke, the more diffused the edge, right? The more weight I'm going to like pull out of the hair, the more I'm going to break it up. The best way to think about it is I give you a pencil and a piece of paper, and you begin to take it and you just begin to do this across the piece of paper with the pencil. You'll have a line, but it's going to be a soft edge. But if you take that pencil and you begin to draw it across the paper like so, I'm going to have an edge, but it's going to be looking more like a Charlie Brown shirt. And the more I go, it's going to be obviously a bit more diffused. So it's the same thing, that's what we call the stroke. And then we can come in with the flat of the blade and we can work right parallelly down the shaft of the hair. And that's using the flat. And that removes a lot of bulk and weight in one go. That's a bit more of, I think, an advanced technique because you can really shatter and blow out somebody's texture if you're not cognizant of what you're doing. Yeah. So on Caitlin, as you guys start cutting some hair, is we've talked about the length. She's a long-haired girl. She wants to keep it long. She wants to bring the length up roughly about 3 inches or so. Looking at the pre-existing layer, she's shorter in the front and it gets longer in the back. It's already a round shape, okay? Round shapes are shorter in the front, getting longer in the back. They're meant to open up the face. And I look at Caitlin, she's got really beautiful features on her face. She's got really lovely lips, got a very lovely nose, beautiful wide set eyes, great brows, just an all around a good symmetry of the face. So I mean, perfect candidate for a round shape. If she was broader in the face, I would hopefully want to maybe push some weight back forward to close down, some of that broadness. You know what I mean? So that's where we have to begin to understand what shapes do what to the hair. Now, we talked about techniques quickly, where we know if we pull all the hair down at natural fall and we cut it down straight, that's what we do when we cut like a bob, right? That's putting maximum weight on the bottom edge. We know as we begin to elevate hair up and out from the shape of the head, depending on the degree, that puts us into the family of graduation. That generally begins to build weight. And I say graduation sits above the shoulder and or shorter. Seeing how Caitlin's hair is going to be longer than the shoulder, and I know I'm not just going to cut a basic line on her, because she's got too much hair for that. I'm going to probably be working on the third technique, which is a layer, removing weight out of the hair. So I'm going to be working something round. It's not going to be a huge takeaway from what Caitlin has, but I think I'm going to be a little bit more open with the strokes, and I'm going to begin to lose a little bit more of the internal weight to loosen it up. Caitlin primarily she's kind of like a wash and go girl, and then if she does blow dry the hair, she'll round brush it possibly or hit it with a large barrel curling iron. When she goes out for the evening with some friends, she kind of gets dressed in a nice pair of jeans, a tucked in top, and maybe a funky pair of sneakers or sandals. So she's kind of what I call like sophisticated casual, you know what I mean? So I don't think I put a big fussy hairdo on top of her. It doesn't really suit her. I see her something with a little bit more kind of an organic flow to the hair. So I'm going to try to contribute that, put that kind of look on her. I'm going to talk about different kind of products that when she were just to air dry the hair, that will work to her benefit, and that's what we're going to do today. So with the chin being back, I'm going to utilize a bit of over direction, because over direction, dragging this hair forward as I begin to move backwards is going to begin to instantly create that round shape. So pulling the hair forward, I'm going to drag it down at a lower elevation to begin to build the line, keeping my finger positions angled out to create this kind of short to long progression of length. I'm going to get that razor moving. Now as I'm cutting back to the left, I utilize the heel of the razor. Tip to the right, heel to the left. So again, getting that razor moving, I'm going to begin to sit it on top of the hair. And you can see that the stroke is a bit more open to create some softness right into the face. So I've got an edge on the hair. You can see the shape, but you can see that it's got definitely some softness through it. The engagement of the razor onto the hair is key. Allison asked me last time, like, well, when wouldn't you use the razor? And I said, well, when I feel like the hair is just not being engaged with it. She's like, well, what does that mean? If I were to pick up the razor and place it on the hair, and if I felt like the hair was catching and it wasn't slipping, the razor was not slipping through the hair enough, and I always think like I'm looking for the engagement of the razor on the shaft of the hair, like a warm butter knife through a cube of butter. There's only two textures I really don't use the razor on, and that would be somebody who's extremely chemically processed blonde, because it like blows out that blonde hair quickly, it like blows out the cuticle layer, or somebody with like a type 4 extremely tight, curly, kind of like kinky pattern within the hair. So I do know that looking at the pre-existing layer, and this is referenced, like, I just didn't cut the hair in and like, get a length. I referenced the lips, and we talked about this in our consultation. I said, my shortest piece in the front, I want to reference the corner of the lips, because I do know that when I have something short or I draw a line, it should always be referencing a beautiful part of the anatomy. So my eye's going to be drawn to that, and it's going to point to the lips. So I'm only kind of accentuating that.
So I might have missed this, but why did you decide to start in the front versus the back?
Yeah, that's a great section, because I'm going to be working a round shape, and generally round shapes are going to be shorter in the front and gradually get longer through the back. So I'm going to utilize my shortest point, working over direction forward to begin to build out this roundness. So we can see that there's a pretty big drop off between that front fringe area and this kind of second area. And I know if I were to connect from this point down, I'd probably create a gap, you know what I mean? It'd almost sit like a bi-level haircut, so I don't want to do that. I think the pre-existing kind of had like its own independent like little fringe area, so I'm just going to work off of that. I'm going to leave this area not to be touched, and what I'll do is I'll come through and work a secondary section, working diagonal back, again, my section angle is always referencing the shape of the haircut. So if I'm working something generally round in shape, the sections take on that same kind of curvature feeling. As I take this and I begin to comb it back, I'm going to just